Don't disturb this beautiful creature. It's just a Ducati taking a nap in the woods. Isn't it beautiful?
If I had to buy a bike today, a middleweight adventure bike,
you might have to. I've seen what you did with this thing.
Well, Ducati might make me, but this is the bike I would buy.
We're totally kidding. We didn't do anything.
Well, yeah,
like
we treated it very nicely.
Yeah, we just rode it
kept it on the pavement, did some U-turns.
You keep your mouth shut.
The internet is a great place to find all the things wrong with a bike, even if it's not actually wrong. And one of the things that is circulating around is that people are concerned about this side stand being mounted to the engine. It's not mounted to the engine, it's mounted to a bracket that is also mounted to the engine and to a bracket that mounts to the frame. That means it's triangulated, it's got a lot of support. I have a lot of damage on this where Paul and I have been using this bike gently, Ducati. We've been borrowing the bike and using it gently. But we have a lot of mars and scars on this. We have not had an issue. I would ensure that if you're going to use this bike in really hardcore situations or really rocky situations where you're going to be impacted on this point, that you have a skid plate that comes down that provides extra support and protection over that. This is the Ducati Performance skid plate, and you can see Ducati actually channeled that and did provide additional protection. I imagine the aftermarket skid plates are going to do a really good job about adding protection to this. Not something I'm really worried about, but it is something to pay attention to.
The brackets and parts on the subframe are all bolted on, so if you do come down hard, they're tucked in nice and tight, but if you do end up bending them, these are all bolt-on parts, the exhaust bracket, the rear passenger foot pegs, and the entire subframe, so if you end up tweaking them or bending them, they're all replaceable. Folks, stop poking the bike! You're gonna make it mad! Folks, I pick up bikes for a living. This is what I do. So let's talk about picking this one up. It turns out it's actually not too bad. It just sort of snaps back to its feet. Look at it, it's awake again. Compared to a Tenere 700, this one feels a little bit lighter. Feels a little heavier than like the 790 or 890 just because of the way the machine is balanced and the way everything's put together. I do wish I had a little handle on the back here to get a better grip on it. It's a little awkward with just this tail section or trying to get your fingers down under the frame. But for the most part, it's not too bad. They just like to take naps in the woods sometimes. What a beautiful creature. Now run, be free. Yeah, the front fender is a little short on the backside, so out here in the mud what we're noticing is a lot of it slinging back and it's packing up on the front of the radiator here, and the center section of it is getting pretty well covered. And when you're going slow speed like this through this mud, you don't get a lot of airflow. It makes the fan work a little bit harder and could affect the cooling. We haven't had a problem with it overheating, but it's just something to keep in the back of your mind if you're doing a lot of this on a hot day.
And the fix is pretty simple, and Ducati may come up with something and extend that fender or end up selling an extension on that. And I'm hoping and I suspect that the aftermarket will take care of this and just give us a little extended fender on the back. That should solve that problem, and then it wouldn't be a concern anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if it just hung down another 8 inches or so, I mean, I think we'd be good.
Yeah, now, I need to go take care of business. If you just go ahead and move the bike over there, we'll be good.
Yeah, I'm gonna be over here in the woods taking care of business. So I'll meet you back here.
When I'm standing on this motorcycle, I mean, it just sits, I lock in really nice at the tank. The tank is a little bit wide, and I could see where people would want like a grip Tkacs or something on the inside here. I didn't find I needed that, but for protection, I would recommend it. Handlebars, I did a little rotation on them, but I didn't need a riser. I didn't feel that I couldn't lock it on the bike. I'm 6 foot, 32-inch inseam. It felt really perfect to me. I think when they designed this bike, they were looking at me. This is possibly the most dialed in suspension for me. I'm 180 pounds of any bike that I've pulled off.
I'm not.
So any bike I've actually pulled off the showroom before, I'm really in love with the suspension. But one thing I noticed about this bike that was really important to know is the rear shock is very well protected. I have almost no mud on the shock whatsoever. So I'm definitely not concerned about the muck getting in there, blowing seals, jamming up the shock,
or even
linkage.
just packing it in and not letting it breathe and having that thing overheat.
And also on the rear of this bike, it's a direct link at the bottom, which means less pivots, less bearings, less things to worry about in this kind of a riding environment.
I had a concern with this front fender exposing the fork seals. There was no protection there. Turns out once you're riding the bike or have any kind of weight on it, there's any compression, they're covered, they're protected. With the RR22, which came out later, which is the black version of this bike, they actually have a little extension that comes up. If you are concerned about this, that extension you can buy from Ducati and it will retrofit onto this fender.
This Ducati has the Ducati protection package on it. That's the hand guards, the crash bars, and the skid plate. The crash bars and the skid plate work really well. I like them. The hand guards are a little lighter duty than what I would like to do because I like to do really stupid things on my motorcycle. It's an aluminum piece from here to here, and that's the only metal that's on it. The rest of this is plastic. And then on the far side, it has a designed fail point. It's a little plastic piece that if it hits hard, it'll snap that piece. It's cheap to replace, it's easy to fix. They intended it to be that way. Also on the outside, there's an aluminum washer on the very end. When we laid this down in the sand, we did pop the center of that, out of that aluminum washer. Again, simple, cheap, and easy to fix, even to fix in the field. I'm not sure if they designed that to be a fail point, but it certainly works well as one. I'm not convinced if you really want to get stupid on your motorcycle and throw it down and do hardcore stuff that this is the crash protection you want. It's a little lighter, it's good for brush protection, but if I throw this thing down hard on the ground, I don't think this is going to do what I want it to do. So it all depends, what are you going to do with your bike?
I'm a tractor guy. You know, growing up back there in Minnesota, you know, we didn't have real fast and high performance tractors, you know. I mean, gosh darn, we just kind of puttered around through the fields and, you know, did our thing, you know, before the weather comes in. This doesn't like to putter. It likes to go.
This bike likes to be spun up a little more than the other bikes I ride. I run about 1,000 RPM higher than I normally do if I'm in slow speed trails or in traffic. And it starts to come alive right around 5,000 RPM. That's just before it hits that peak torque number of 6,500.
Me riding this is like hooking a racehorse to a plow. It doesn't like to go slow. It doesn't like to putter around it idle the way I ride. It needs to be spun up a little bit.
Well,
What'd you say about?
Well, I would say it prefers. It prefers to be spun up. I mean, it does have, so the rider modes on this has 6 rider modes, and you can set it, I mean, we can set up everything.
And you put it 75 horsepower and dull the throttle response down. So if you're a newer rider and just trying to get a feel for this thing, it does tame it down quite a bit and make it a little more confidence inspiring.
Yep. So they have four power settings on this. They have your stupid mode, which is 110 horsepower.
So Brett mode.
And then they have 95 horsepower, which is their road mode, basically their touring mode. And then 75 horsepower
Tractor mode.
Or 75 horsepower and really soft throttle response. And this is really good for them because they really opened up the market for who can ride this motorcycle. Because that means you can have anybody from those that want to get stupid on it to those who want to just putter around, or those of you who are newer to this. And I think that's great because it makes it a motorcycle that you can grow into. It's a very long wheelbase, which really helps the bike stay centered. It keeps it going in a straight line. And when the bike kicks out, it has a nice direct, it's almost like dial a slide. And I really like that handling characteristic of the bike. The foot pegs on this bike work really well. And I'm not having any problem with it packing full of mud. When I put my foot down, I'm catching the cleats every single time. And guys, at this price point, if I'm buying a premium motorcycle, the last thing I want to do is go out and buy new suspension and suspension protection and new foot pegs and risers and new handlebars. And for me, this bike is ready to go off the showroom floor. I need a little protection.
I was going to say one thing that I would add to it. is either a wrap or some kind of guards on the tank. What we've noticed when we're out here in the mud, even if it just splashes up on your pants, if it's rubbing on the side of the tank, we're starting to get some Georgia camouflage on here where this white is getting a little bit of an orange tint to it just from rubbing on the side of it. So probably some extra protection there if you want to preserve the paint.
Well, that works out well. The sticker they have on it comes off really easy, and you can do a nice wrap across the entire bike. Or we can, if you like that sticker on there, certainly doing some grip Tkacs or some kind of a grip material on the tank would be a great thing. It's not going to hurt you for riding. I think it's going to be great on the road, and certainly it'll help protect that tank from rubbing through. I thought the seat was comfortable. It does have some movement. I've heard others talk about the movement. Didn't see an issue with that at all. I found
that seat sucked.
I found the seat pretty comfortable.
I didn't.
But I did.
But I didn't.
But I did.
I understand that, but yeah. I didn't. No, that for me again. A little more robust. For me, apparently that foam was not designed for me, and I crushed it all the way down to the frame. And after riding it down the road for a little while, I could start to feel, it felt like I was sitting right on the bar right here, that I could feel it pressing up into my thigh. So for me, I would need to get either the Rally seat that goes with this, which is a little bit taller and has a little better foam in it, or I would have to go with something aftermarket. The stock seat just didn't work for me.
Okay, Ducati maintenance. That's the next thing that's coming up. Yes, this has Desmondronic valves. There's no valve springs in there, which makes it really cool, and it's a fantastic looking tattoo, just in case you were looking for an idea. But the valve intervals on this are now up to 18,000. That makes it on par with pretty much everything else in the market.
Well, in the windscreen is one of those things that people ask about. You're going to get wind noise. There's definitely noise, but we don't get the buffeting. It's a fairly small screen. It's not adjustable, but
it either works or it doesn't.
Yep, you could hear it, but you didn't get the bobblehead effect. It wasn't beating you up.
It is not the quietest bike I've been behind, but like Paul mentioned, no head buffeting, no fatigue. They definitely, down below the steering head, they have a plastic shield down there that buffers wind coming up from underneath. It works well, but it's not the quietest bike if you're out on the interstate or high speeds.
And they did put you'd mentioned mounting a phone or a GPS. They did put a USB power port right on the side of the display, so really easy to get to. It's got a little waterproof cover that goes over it, but it does have a single USB port that comes off the side to power any other electronics you want to throw on there.
So the headlights are so cool. They are so
well, that's why cool. I was trying to have the steering contest, because
So what happens on the headlights is they have a ring around the outside, and they have a switch on the right handlebar, and you can turn on just the daylights, and you have this beautiful ring of lights. And if you hit the low beam, then you end up with the circle with the low beam in the middle, and then of course you have the high beam. So you have 3 different light settings on it, and it looks so neat. That's it, guys. If there's anything that we haven't talked about that you're interested about on the bike, let us know. It was an absolute blast on the trail. It was fun on the road.
Don't stare at those too long, man. It makes you really want to buy one. I really did have fun with this bike. It was a really good time. Very enjoyable ride.
Thanks, folks.
Love you, folks. Later. Bye.
The internet is always full of fucking and the KTM
I'm sorry, we gotta stop
on the other end.
One, I lost my mouse, and I was just sitting here fidgeting with it because I thought it was this buckle, and you're probably going to hear a whole bunch of...
That's exactly what we're going to hear.
On the...
Yeah, why don't you go find your...
Okay, the knobs feel good.
You're framed in, Paul.
Can we get taller knobs?
Stop it.
What are the things I don't like?
You just crack yourself up, don't you?
Oh, I kill me. Oh my God, I'm the funniest motherfucker I've ever met. Aren't you glad we're not using film?
Yeah, film would be a problem.
I would be really expensive. Are we still? You motherfucker. Okay. I was doing really good because I was watching that little dribble hang off the bottom of your nose.
Yeah?
And as you were talking, it was just, and I'm like, is it going to fall? Is it going to fall? Because he's not sniffing, so I'm not going to sniff either. Is he going to wipe it off? Because I would just kind of, as I'm turning, just...
If it was my personal bike, I would end up running through the paint on this.
And if you want to see where he's rubbing at, check out his OnlyFans page. Let's get this thing out of here.
Seriously, Paul? Seriously?
I couldn't help it.